The damp chill of the Venetian morning clung to Elena's skin as she stepped out from the narrow doorway of the pension. The aqua altar was rising steadily, and Venice's streets had transformed into shimmering canals bordered by ancient stone walls. Her footsteps echoed faintly on the soaked cobblestones as she made her way toward the labyrinthine alleys that concealed the city's secrets. It was not long before she became aware of a presence. A figure lingered in the shadow of a crumbling palazzo, his gaze sharp and calculating. Detective Dario Sartori. Elena had heard whispers of him, a man known for his thoroughness and skepticism, especially when it came to outsiders poking their noses into Venice's affairs. She met his eyes briefly, a silent exchange charged with unspoken questions. Sartori's suspicion was palpable, and yet, beneath it, she sensed a flicker of curiosity. He was watching her, not just as a suspect, but as a puzzle to be understood. Later that day, Elena found herself at a discreet cafe nestled beside a canal, its terrace shaded by drooping wisteria. The murmur of water lapping against wooden pilings blended with the soft clink of porcelain cups. Here, in the shifting twilight, she encountered Isabella Moretti. Isabella's presence was magnetic elegance personified, with her impeccably tailored attire and eyes that seemed to pierce through lies and half-truths alike. Their conversation was a careful dance, words wrapped in layers of meaning, smiles that barely concealed veiled threats, and silences pregnant with implication. "You tread dangerous waters, Signora Rossi," Isabella murmured, her voice smooth as Venetian silk. Not all truths wished to be uncovered. Elena met the gaze unflinchingly. And yet, some truths must surface, no matter the cost. The social undercurrents were as treacherous as the rising floodwaters outside. Friendships and enmities entwined like the twisting canals, and Elena struggled to discern which faces were masks and which bore genuine intent. Amid this maze, Luca Bellini remained a steadfast presence. By the water's edge, with the scent of salt and damp wood in the air, he lowered his voice. "You must be cautious, Elena. The city watches, and not all who smile wish you well." His loyalty was a balm amid the uncertainty, but the danger was ever present, growing with each tide. As night fell, Elena found herself alone in a shadowed piazza. The floodwaters mirrored the flickering lamplight, creating a kaleidoscope of light and darkness. Here, she pondered the complex web of politics and history that now ensnared her. Venice, with its timeless beauty, hid beneath the surface a darkness as deep and shifting as the waters themselves. Her resolve hardened. She would navigate these treacherous waters, trust sparingly, and press onward. The lines between friend and foe blurred in the rising tide, but Elena understood one truth clearly: to uncover Venice's buried secrets, she would have to embrace both the city's beauty and its shadows. Yet, as the night deepened, an uneasy question lingered in her mind: could she trust even those closest to her before the waters claimed all? The heavy air of the submerged chamber clung to Elena's skin as she knelt by the waterlogged crate, her fingers trembling as they brushed aside layers of silt and debris. The flickering beam of her flashlight danced across the brittle edges of parchments, the fragile manuscripts crinkling softly beneath her touch. This was the moment she had been chasing since her arrival in Venice, the tangible proof of a hidden past, long swallowed by the city's watery embrace. She unfolded one particularly delicate sheet, the ink faded but still legible in the dim light. The ornate script told stories of alliances forged and broken, of families whose names still echoed through the palazzi above. Her heart quickened when she saw the Vianney crest, a subtle but unmistakable mark linking the present to the Renaissance shadows. The manuscripts described secret pacts, betrayals that had shaped Venice's fate in ways no history book dared to reveal. Elena's breath caught when she read a passage detailing a clandestine meeting held on a night much like this one, the canals swollen and threatening to overflow. The conspirators had sworn to protect their power at any cost, even if it meant sacrificing the city's soul. She traced the faded ink with a finger, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on her. Suddenly, The muffled echo of footsteps above the water startled her. She snapped the documents shut and slipped them into a waterproof case. Rising silently, Elena made her way through the flooded corridors, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. The city around her was a maze of shadows and reflections, where every ripple seemed to whisper secrets. Later, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples and fiery oranges, Elena met Luca Bellini on a narrow canal. His gondola bobbed gently against the worn stone steps, the rhythmic splash of the oar breaking the silence. Luca's weathered face was etched with concern as he listened to her recount the discoveries. "The past is never truly buried here," he murmured, "but digging it up can drown you if you are not careful." Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden appearance of Marco Viani, emerging from the shadows with the practiced grace of a man born into power. His sharp eyes locked onto Elena's, a cold smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Curiosity is a dangerous tide, Signora Rossi," he warned softly, the menace beneath his words unmistakable. Elena met his gaze steadily, refusing to be cowed. Back in the sanctuary of the Venice State Library, Giulia Conti carefully laid out the recovered documents. The soft rustling of pages was the only sound as Elena scanned the texts, each revelation a step deeper into the labyrinth of deceit. The church bells tolled in the distance, their mournful chimes a haunting accompaniment to the truths unveiled. The weight of the past was no longer a distant echo, but a living threat. Elena knew that the conspiracy she had uncovered was not merely historical, it was a force that still shaped the city's present, and it was watching her every move. The waters outside continued to rise, swallowing Venice inch by inch, mirroring the tide of danger that crept ever closer. As darkness fell, Elena stood at the water's edge, the city's lights shimmering on the surface like fragile stars. She tightened her grip on the waterproof case, a symbol of hope and peril intertwined. Somewhere beneath the waves lay the truth, waiting to be brought to light, but at what cost? The shadows of the Renaissance were no longer confined to history, they had returned with a vengeance, and Elena was caught in their relentless current. Her mind raced with possibilities and threats. Marco Viani was more than just a hurdle. He was the embodiment of the corruption she sought to expose. Trust was a scarce commodity in this city of masks and mirrors, where every alley might harbor a dagger and every secret could be a death sentence. Yet, despite the isolation and danger, Elena's resolve hardened. The past demanded reckoning, and she would be its voice, even if it meant standing alone against the tides of betrayal. The Grand Palazzo loomed before Elena Rossi like a beacon of both allure and menace. Its tall windows aglow with warm light that spilled onto the cobblestone streets, slick with the Acqua Alta's rising tide. She adjusted the collar of her damp coat and took a deep breath, steeling herself to enter a world far removed from the damp alleys and murky canals she had grown accustomed to over the past weeks. Tonight, the elegant Isabella Moretti had extended an invitation, a rare opening into the city's high society and possibly a key to unraveling the elusive threads of the conspiracy that had haunted Elena's every step. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of polished wood, aged leather, and the faintest hint of jasmine. Crystal chandeliers hung from frescoed ceilings, fracturing the light into a kaleidoscope that danced across the gilded walls. Guests in tailored suits and shimmering gowns moved with practiced grace, their voices a soft murmur punctuated by polite laughter and the clink of fine glassware. Elena felt momentarily out of place, her practical attire a stark contrast to the opulence surrounding her. Yet her piercing eyes scanned every corner, every face, searching for the subtle cues that might betray hidden motives. Isabella greeted her with a smile that did not quite reach her cold, calculating eyes. "Elena, so glad you could come," she said, her voice smooth as silk but edged with something unreadable. "Venice has many stories to tell, and tonight, perhaps some will surface." Her words hung in the air, laden with insinuation. As the evening unfolded, Elena found herself drifting among clusters of guests, listening intently to conversations that skirted the surface of politics, art, and history. Beneath the polished veneer, she detected a current of tension, whispers of old grievances and unspoken debts. At one point, she caught a glimpse of a masked figure whispering urgently to Isabella, their eyes flashing with veiled warnings. The scene sent a shiver down Elena's spine. She realized that the alliances here were fragile and fraught with danger. Luca Bellini, ever vigilant, appeared at her side with a subtle nod. "Keep your guard, Elena," he murmured. "Not all smiles here are sincere." Their brief exchange was interrupted as Elena's gaze drifted to the terrace, where the moonlight glinted off the swollen canals. There, silhouetted against the dark water, stood Marco Viani. His sharp gaze scanned the gathering like a predator assessing its prey. The sight tightened the knot of apprehension in Elena's chest. Marco had always been a shadow looming over her quest, and tonight, his presence was a silent threat. As the night deepened, the aqua altar crept further into the city, seeping beneath doors and pooling across the marble floors of the palazzo's lower levels. Murmurs of concern rippled through the guests as their heels slipped on the wet stone. The gathering, once a glittering display of Venetian grandeur, began to fracture under the weight of the rising waters and the secrets they symbolized. Isabella's smile faltered for the briefest moment as she gestured for the guests to move upward, away from the flood. Elena followed, her mind racing. The encroaching water was more than a natural phenomenon. It was a metaphor for the delicate facade Venice maintained beautiful and proud but on the brink of collapse. In a quiet moment on a balcony overlooking the flooded piazza, Elena whispered to Luca, "This city is drowning in secrets, and tonight, I've seen just how deep the waters run." He nodded gravely. "And some of those secrets are willing to drown anyone who tries to uncover them." The night ended with more questions than answers, but Elena felt a subtle shift in the currents around her. The conspiracy was no longer a distant mystery. It was a living, breathing force entwined with the city's very soul. As she stepped back into the rain-slicked streets, the cacophony of water and whispered threats followed her, a haunting reminder that beneath the mask of grandeur, Venice concealed a darkness that would not easily be washed away. With the floodwaters rising and the stakes higher than ever, Elena knew her journey had only just begun and that the path ahead would demand every ounce of her courage and cunning. The mask of elegance had slipped, revealing the treacherous depths beneath, and in those depths the truth awaited. The soft clatter of rain against the ancient window pane was a steady companion as Elena Rossi sat hunched over the fragile manuscripts that lay scattered across the worn wooden table in her small Venetian apartment. The dim light of a single oil lamp cast long shadows across the yellowed pages, illuminating the delicate ink strokes that had survived centuries beneath the water. Outside, the city was swallowed in the grey embrace of the aqua altar, the rising waters seeping through the labyrinth of canals and alleys, swallowing the familiar world whole. Elena's eyes traced the faded text again, each word a whisper from the past, a secret long submerged but now clawing its way back to the surface. She felt the weight of history pressing down on her, a burden far heavier than the dampness clinging to her clothes or the chill settling in her bones. These documents were not mere relics. They were testimonies of betrayal, manipulation, and a darkness festering beneath Venice's celebrated beauty. Her breath caught as she read a passage describing a clandestine pact forged centuries ago, a betrayal that had shaped the city's fate in ways no history book dared admit. The ink was smudged in places, water-damaged and fragile, but the message was unmistakable. The truth was far more complex and sinister than she had imagined. A sudden knock at the door startled her. She hesitated, her fingers stilling on the parchment. The knock came again, softer this time. Rising, she moved cautiously through the narrow hallway and opened the door to reveal Father Angelo, the elderly priest she had met a few days earlier in the shadowed chapel near the flooded piazza. His face was lined with years of quiet contemplation, his eyes reflecting a mixture of sorrow and wisdom. "May I come in, Elena?" he asked, his voice low but steady. Without waiting for a response, he stepped inside, the faint scent of incense trailing behind him. "The city is restless," he said softly, glancing toward the window where rain continued its relentless fall. "And so are its secrets." Elena gestured toward the table. "I've uncovered things I never expected. Things that make me question everything I thought I knew about Venice." Father Angelo nodded knowingly. "History is not just the chronicles in books or the tales passed down by elders. It is the spirit of a place, the echoes that linger beneath the stones and the water. Venice carries its past like the tide carries debris, sometimes hidden, sometimes crashing to shore with force." She studied him, searching his face for clues beyond his words. "How do you bear it? The burden of knowing," he paused, his gaze distant. "Faith and understanding. But also acceptance that some truths are heavier than we can carry alone. Venice's story is woven from light and shadow, and to grasp one without the other is to see only half the picture." Elena felt a shiver run through her, not from the cold, but from the weight of his counsel. The spiritual dimension of her discoveries added a new layer of complexity. This was not just an academic pursuit. It was a confrontation with the soul of a city. As Father Angelo prepared to leave, he placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Be cautious, Elena. The waters rise, and so do the dangers for those who seek what lies beneath. But remember, even the deepest flood cannot drown the truth forever." After he left, Elena stood by the window, watching the floodwaters creep higher, seeping over the stone steps of the nearby piazza, swallowing benches and shopfronts alike. The reflection of the city's ancient bell tower shimmered in the murky water, distorted and trembling. She thought of the manuscripts, the hidden chamber she had yet to explore, and the shadowed figures who would stop at nothing to keep these secrets buried. The isolation she felt was profound. Her only allies were fragile pages and cryptic words, and her path was shrouded in uncertainty. Yet beneath the dread, a fierce determination burned. The truth demanded to be heard, no matter the cost. Later that evening, Elena took a solitary walk along the canal's edge, the water swirling around her boots as she paused beneath a wrought iron lamppost. The mist clung to the air, softening the harsh outlines of the city's architecture. Lights from distant windows flickered like distant stars, casting pale pools of gold onto the water's surface. She closed her eyes briefly, breathing in the damp, briny air, feeling the pulse of Venice beneath her feet, the city of water, secrets and shadows. The weight of history was immense, yet she felt, for the first time, a connection not just to the past, but to the future, a future that might be shaped by her courage to expose what had long been concealed. The night deepened, but Elena's resolve remained unshaken. The rising tide might threaten to engulf her, but she would not be swept away without a fight. Venice's story was hers to tell, and she would carry that burden as long as the waters flowed beneath her feet. And as the first light of dawn touched the flooded streets, casting a fragile glow over the city, Elena knew that the true test of her journey was yet to come, where history, faith, and betrayal would collide beneath the ever-watchful gaze of the Venetian sky. The dim light of the room cast long shadows over the water-stained walls, the faint drip of leaking rainwater echoing softly like a secret being whispered just out of reach. Elena Rossi sat hunched over a fragile manuscript, her fingers trembling slightly as she traced the faded ink that seemed to unravel the threads of trust she had so carefully woven. The document was more than just a piece of history. It was a mirror reflecting the fractures in her own circle, the lines between friend and foe blurring with each page she turned. Outside, the city of Venice lay submerged beneath the relentless aqua alta, its flooded streets a labyrinthine maze of uncertainty and danger. Elena had grown accustomed to the water's steady encroachment, but nothing had prepared her for the tidal wave of betrayal that now threatened to engulf her. Earlier that evening, Luca Bellini had approached her with a wary expression, eyes darkened by concern and something unspoken. They met in a narrow piazza where the glow of gas lamps flickered against the shimmering surface of the flooded cobblestones. Luca's voice was low, almost a whisper against the soft patter of rain. "Elena, you don't know who's watching. Not everyone wants the truth to surface." She looked at him, the lines of fatigue etched deeply on his weathered face, and saw the conflict within a man torn between loyalty to his city and the fear of confronting the powerful families that still pulled the strings from the shadows. "I have to know," she replied quietly, "no matter the cost." Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of Detective Dario Sartori, his presence as unyielding as the rising tide. His sharp eyes flicked between them, calculating and guarded. Though initially suspicious, Dario's growing recognition of Elena's conviction had softened his stance, forging an uneasy alliance fraught with unspoken tensions. "We need to be careful," Dario warned, his breath visible in the chill night air. "This isn't just about old documents, this is about people who will go to any lengths to protect their secrets." Elena nodded, the weight of his words sinking deep. She had already felt the cold edge of danger, the subtle threats that had shadowed her steps since her arrival. But the sting of betrayal was a wound far sharper, cutting through the fragile bonds she had relied on. Earlier that day, a trusted contact had revealed herself to be a conduit for those who wished to silence Elena's quest. The realization had shattered the sanctuary of trust Elena had clung to, leaving her isolated in a city where every smile might mask a dagger. As twilight descended, Elena found herself gazing out from a canal-side window, watching Isabella Moretti disappear into the warm glow of a lavish palazzo. Isabella's grace and poise concealed ambitions and fears as deep and shifting as the waters lapping at Venice's foundations. The cold light of the rising flood reflected the ambiguity of their relationship, a dance of alliances that could either protect or betray. With the city slowly succumbing to the flood, Elena's world had become a mirror of the Aqua Alta itself, beautiful yet treacherous, holding secrets beneath its surface that could either save or drown her. Every step forward demanded courage, every alley weighed against the possibility of deception. In the stillness of that waterlogged night, Elena made a silent vow. She would navigate this maze of shadows and tides, uncover the truth no matter the cost, and decide, in the end, who was truly worthy of her trust. The path ahead was uncertain, but Elena Rossi was no stranger to walking alone in the face of darkness. The city's secrets awaited her, buried beneath the waves, and she would confront them, crossroads of trust and betrayal converging beneath the rising tide. And somewhere in the distance, the water continued its relentless climb, swallowing the city's streets and whispering of the truths yet to surface. Elena Rossi stood at the edge of the canal, the Aqua Alta swelling around the ancient stone walls of Venice like a living, breathing entity. The water lapped gently, yet beneath its calm surface lay secrets that had festered for centuries, waiting for the right moment to resurface. With gloved hands, she reached into the murky water, feeling the rough texture of the submerged wooden chest beneath. Her heart beat faster as she carefully lifted the lid, water pouring out and revealing fragile bundles of manuscripts, their edges softened and worn by time and moisture. The fading light of dusk cast a grey haze over the city, the silhouettes of gondolas and crumbling palazzos blurring into the fog. Elena's breath caught as she extracted a parchment, the ink barely visible but the script unmistakably ancient. She cradled it delicately, aware that one wrong move could undo decades of preservation. Each document was a thread in a tapestry of betrayal, manipulation, and power that had shaped Venice's history far beyond the romantic tales told to tourists. Back in a cramped, makeshift study room near the flooded piazza, Elena spread the manuscripts across a table cluttered with tools for preservation: brushes, dehumidifiers, and acid-free paper. Giulia Conti, the archivist from the Venice State Library, hovered nearby, her eyes sharp behind thin glasses as she handled each document with reverence. "These are remarkable," Julia murmured, tracing her fingers over a faded map that depicted the city's waterways alongside cryptic annotations. "They challenge so many accepted stories. If these reach the public, they will change everything," Elena said, her voice low but resolute. "But that's why Marco Viani is desperate to silence us." The name hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Marco, the scion of a powerful Renaissance family, embodied the city's shadowy corruption. His influence seeped through Venice's politics and social circles like the floodwaters that now pressed against every doorway and threshold. Later that evening, Luca Bellini met Elena near a narrow alleyway where the water had risen ankle-deep. His weathered face was set with concern as he recounted a chilling encounter. "Marco was here," Luca said quietly, his gaze scanning the darkened streets. "He warned me to tell you to stop," said the city's stability depends on certain things staying buried. Elena's jaw tightened. "He doesn't understand that stability built on lies is a fragile thing. We can't let fear dictate history." But the danger was real. The threats were no longer veiled whispers. They had taken shape in the form of shadowy figures watching her movements and subtle acts of sabotage against her research. One night, as Elena returned from the archive, she noticed footprints in the shallow floodwater leading toward her temporary quarters. Her pulse quickened. She was not alone. Inside, she found a hastily scrawled note pinned to the doorframe. "Some stones are better left unturned." The message was clear and chilling. Yet, despite the growing peril, Elena's determination deepened. She pored over the documents with Julia, uncovering evidence that implicated not just Renaissance families, but also contemporary power brokers, politicians, business magnates, and cultural leaders, all entwined in a conspiracy that had shaped Venice's fate for centuries. Each revelation was a blow to the city's polished facade, exposing the rot beneath the grandeur. The water that adorned Venice's streets and alleys became a metaphor for the buried truths threatening to engulf them all. Elena's isolation grew, but so did her resolve. She could no longer trust everyone around her, not fully. Even Luca's unwavering loyalty was tempered by his fear for her safety and the city's fragile balance. The night deepened, and Venice's lights shimmered on the water's surface like distant stars trapped in a watery sky. Elena leaned over the table, the manuscripts spread before her like a map of shadows. Somewhere in this maze of ink and water lay the key to breaking the cycle of betrayal. But with Marco Viani closing ranks, wielding his influence like a weapon, the path forward was fraught with danger. The secrets she sought to unveil carried a price, one that might cost her more than she had ever imagined. As she prepared to dive back into the depths of the submerged archive the next day, Elena knew this was no longer just a quest for knowledge. It was a battle for the soul of Venice itself, and the tide was rising.